That was Misty by Ray Stevens. That goes back a while. He was sort of like one of those artists that sort of did a little bit of comedy in his when he wrote songs. Anyway, that was Ray Stevens. I have, and I've forgotten his name. I know I haven't.
How could you?
How could I? I've got Nick in here in the studio. He's popped in. Okay, so what does Nick do?
Nick, yes. So, Nick. Nick Gwynn is my name.
Okay.
What do I do? As in, what do I do for a job, or what do I do in my spare time? Or
Let's start off with the job, and then we go into your spare time.
Yep, great. So, at the moment, I direct and run Breathe Counselling.
What? Oh, go on. No, go.
Yep. Breathe Counselling. So I've been doing that for the last, I think, 10 and a half years. And that is, directing a counselling and psychology service that is over multiple sites throughout Western Australia. And I also still do counselling within that as well.
What sort of counselling do you do?
I do individual counselling, couples counselling, a little bit of family counselling, everything from children all the way through to pensioners and aged people.
Really?
So, yeah.
What is there more reason for people to see counsellors today than there was 15, 20 years ago?
Wow, okay, so that's a huge question. Look, I think the need, how would you say it? The needs change, obviously with world events and different things happening in society on one level, but on another level, human needs have never changed. Human needs are human needs. So I guess the need for counselling, and when we look at that, the need to be listened to, the need to be able to process things, the need for support when you're going through difficult seasons in life, that need has always been there. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So if people go and see you, what is the thing you try to do first off?
Yep. Okay. So I think the fundamental outstanding need that is common to all of us in essence, and really when we look at research and what works in and through counselling, what is the healing element of it? Bottom line, it's relationships. So it's all about connection. So the first thing that I do and that generally counsellors should do is build a safe rapport with a client, a place where that person who is coming in, and generally they're nervous. Obviously you're speaking to someone you've never met before, and there's an element of vulnerability. People, it's me coming in today. I've never done a radio interview before, and there's a few nerves there. I'm like, wow, what's this going to be like? So people are coming in with that stuff, and that. So naturally, you want to help them to feel comfortable, build trust, and a sense of safety around connection.
Is that hard?
I don't find it difficult as such. I think for different people, I guess we get as I said, we get a range of different people that come in for counselling, and that is, everyone. You've got people who may be coming in who are in the midst of a massive crisis. They might have lost someone, or they're going through a divorce, or tackling a very real emotional or mental challenge. But we also get people who come in who, I guess, more proactively, or they're looking for strategies or help around self-care, or learning skills around leadership, or really wanting to learn stuff, around their given trade or what they do. So we get a lot of different people. So naturally, I think some folks, it is more challenging to build that rapport and trust. And naturally, many of us have been let down, or we may have trust issues, or have been betrayed, or there's areas where we're like, I need to really test this person before I trust them. And that's more challenging.
That's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, on a number of different levels, Nick. I'm just when you mentioned that about levels of trust, and I was a while ago and retired, and I had a very, very, very small nest egg, and somebody recommended a financial advisor to me, and I must have done so many self-tests in my head by asking him questions because of that trust factor.
Yeah.
And once I was convinced that, yes, this bloke is okay, then it was fine. But that was nothing, that was financial advisor, counsellor. It was a similar sort of feeling. So when you say you're a little bit apprehensive about coming here, I know what you mean. But and people think, it must be a big thing going on in your life and this, that, the other. But something can be so whimsical, and it sparks that, doesn't it?
It does.
So, do you have your? It was funny because I have just digressing a little bit. I have he's he's very big into men's mental health.
Okay, great.
And he has a website, and he has men, and it's quite interesting how he says men have really difficulty in being vulnerable. That's one of the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he said the thing that he finds is, he said, look, I'm a counsellor, but if somebody comes to see me, we might not hit it off.
Yeah.
As a counsellor.
Yep.
He said, so your counsellor is, probably they're all, a lot of them are good, but you just might not have that connection.
That's right. Yeah. And that's super, super important. And I'll often say to, to my clients, I'll often say, look, I could be the best counsellor in the world, but if we don't have a connection, I might remind you of that teacher you had in year 7 who, embarrassed you in front of the whole class, and that might, you might be like, oh, I don't like this guy, or whatever.
Yeah.
It could be anything. So because counselling is such a personal, vulnerable space, you really want to like the person you're talking to.
You do, don't you?
You do.
Yeah. And how, I'm going from chopping, just asking all the questions. So how hard is it for you not to get involved? How does Nick, he goes and sees, and you have the connection, and you get on quite well with this person.
Yep.
How do you separate that from when that person leaves the office?
Sure. Yep. Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. How do you do that? Is that hard?
Look, I would say that it's different for different personalities.
Yeah.
So I'm someone, and it's interesting. My wife and I were actually talking about this on the way here today. I am I guess what some people might call an empath. So I feel a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and that's just who I am. I'm probably naturally a bit sensitive in that space. So I feel things. And I would say there's an element of my life journey that has involved me learning how to manage that, both in my work and in my personal life. How to manage that sensitivity, how to manage that sense of feeling. So, so that's been a journey that's, in one sense, taken a long time to learn. So, for me, I've been involved in people work for about 30 years.
Wow.
In various forms. So lots of different kinds of things, from counselling to lecturing to pastoring and chaplaincy to project management, lots of different things over a long period of time. And in fact, early on in the piece, I was in a particular season of my life, I was doing a number of people work jobs to pay the mortgage, and I burnt out. And so I had to give up all those jobs, and ended up going and getting a job with the local council. I had a background in horticulture, had a truck license, so I could fall back on that, and I went and worked for the local council for a while, and spent 6 months recovering from that. So, long story short, I've learnt the hard way on how to set boundaries and how to, on one level, be present with people in the sessions, and to give them everything I have, in a sense, but to be able to, when the session ends, be able to end it there and leave it there.
How do you do that? Because I'm assuming, I'm assuming you're still a very empathetic person.
Yep. I try to be.
So how do you, well, this sounds harsh, but it's not meant to sound harsh. Yep. How do you cut off empathy when you're an empathetic person?
Yeah. So I think the way that I look at it, in a sense, is that we have a head and a heart.
Yeah.
And we need both. And so empathy, in my mind, is a heart. It's a heart thing. Whereas the head, you need wisdom. And so there's a point where you can make a decision, I guess what initially would have been a conscious act of my will, but now is more of a subconscious thing, where I finish the session, and I finish the session. And I may write some notes. I might send some resources to a client. If it's if it's challenging, it may come up confidentially in a supervision session that I have, but it's generally left there, and that has become an act of my will,
right?
A volitional, a choice. And I guess the other side of that is that I actively practice self-care. So I'm a surfer, so it's sort of been my recreation of choice since I was about 12. And I do that as much as I can, exercise and kind of, So
it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like, not that I'm a follower as such of any religion, Nick. But and I've probably said this before on air. I was working with a woman. 30 years ago now, I think, and she was like calm and quite, And I said to her anyway, and she said, "Oh, yes, I read Buddhist books," and she said, "Do you look like one?" I go, "No, I don't want to be involved there." Anyway, to cut a long story short, she would say, I eventually, "Well, just give me one, but I don't want anybody knock on my door or anything like that." And so I've read them, quite a few of them since, and one of the things which they profess is logic and emotion, which is perhaps head and heart, and you've got to have both.
That's right.
And you can't have too much logic, because then you lose the heart. But if you have too much emotion, then the logic goes out the window. Right. I'm not saying it's true, but I thought it was quite interesting when you said the same sort of thing. You got your head and your heart. And when you're very much a giving person, and you see it all the time, I see it all the time, and it sort of upsets me when I see very empathetic, very kind people who would give you the shirt off their back. And they go, they've given everything away, and they've got nothing. And I don't, you know, I thought that shouldn't happen to that person. But, you know, it's a sad thing like that.
It's really interesting. I think a real key for me for a long time, and I really first engaged with this when I was probably about 21. And that was the concept of boundaries. And that has been a lifelong journey, a lifelong learning journey and education for me. The learning about boundaries and understanding them and applying them. And I guess, you know, if you were to ask me what's the definition of a boundary, I would say it's a property line. Not unlike the fence in your home, you know, it's and in a human aspect, that is where I begin and where I end. What my responsibility is and what it isn't. You know, what I can control and what I can't. And you know, it's interesting. The research around boundaries is that we've discovered that the most compassionate people who are wandering around in the world today are actually the most boundaried people.
Are they really?
They are.
How do you mean that?
Yep. So boundaries, in a sense, and to quote someone who has done a lot of boundaries research and someone who's fairly well known in the world of people work is Brené Brown. And she would say that boundaries are about what's okay and what's not okay. And what we would say with that, and the reason why people, the most boundaried people, are the most compassionate people, is that boundaried people are the least resentful. See, if I tolerate things that I'm not okay with, and I say yes to things that perhaps I should be saying no to, and are not setting enough limits in my life and extending myself and, in essence, even being a bleeding heart beyond my capacity, eventually I'll either become burnt out or at the very least resentful and angry about that.
That's interesting. So if I paraphrase this, if that's a word.
Please.
So if you were to set boundaries, you would end up being more empathetic, is that?
That's correct. It actually looks after your heart. So if we come back to what I was saying before about empathy and compassion, in a sense, being a heart thing, boundaries help you look after your heart. To quote the old proverb, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow all the issues of life.
Wow.
It's an active or proactive practice of looking after your heart. And you know, I will also say to some of my clients at times, the most important thing I can do as a counsellor is actually look after my heart.
Wow. That's really quite, it's quite enlightening, quite deep, you know. And one of the advantages of me being in this chair is that I interview so many people, and the greater percentage of people go away and I've learned something which I really love, and I'd never thought of it like that, and now I walk away thinking, I've learned. So Nick, is there, in these days, it's really so many options we can go in, you know, like I said many years ago, we could connect. And back in my day, you were lucky if you had a phone, ring up, connect.
Yeah.
So the connections were very sparse. Now we've got emails, we've got SMSs, we've got mobile phones with us all the time. So we can connect a lot better, but I find that we connect less.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I think, you know, what we're dealing with, at least in the Western world, is a pandemic of loneliness.
Yes.
And look, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, I mean, I think as human beings, we're fundamentally tribal. So we are relational. Yeah. We exist in relationship. we live and in a sense move and have our being in connection and relationship. And I mean, even research into that, the people who live the longest, the people who have the best heart health, the people who have the best mental health, the people who have the strongest immune systems, all of this are people who are deeply connected and relationally healthy. And so, our mental health is directly proportional to our relational health. When it comes to... Sorry, I've just done a huge, big diversion there.
No, that's okay. That's great. Honestly, I think it's great. I do think it's great.
I guess what we find with the modern world today, with various forms of multimedia and communication, is that there's a lot of options, as you say, and there's lots of different kinds of communication modes, but there's not necessarily the depth. And so social media and Facebook and Instagram and these kinds of things are a case in point. If you might be interacting with people on Facebook, for instance, and you're getting likes and things, and that will give you a dopamine hit. It'll give you a little dopamine hit, and then another one, and another one, and another one. But it's not necessarily really meeting that deeper need that we have as human beings to be known and loved, and to be able to connect in meaningful ways that I think can really only happen face to face.
Yeah, isn't that, again, is a question, because sometimes you read things and, they stick in your mind and you say, because is it true that that most, I don't really know, most of our communication is done through body language?
Yep.
And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, there's no body language, isn't it?
No.
So I'm talking to you here, and there's I've never met Nick before, but there's, you get the sense that you're connecting with somebody on, rather than even on a phone, you don't get that. You could be phoning in, and I could be asked the same questions, but it's a reaction, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, we're mirroring each other to some degree here. There's mirror neurons going on in the brain where we're sort of moving, and there's connection happening on that bodily level.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, a lot of what we do at Breathe, and what I would say most therapists are doing now is offering online therapy. So we're doing counselling, both individuals and couples, via Teams or through video telehealth appointments, and they're surprisingly effective.
Oh, really?
This really took off in a big way, or took quite a boost during COVID when there was lockdown.
Yeah.
But it's grown over the years, obviously, as technology has developed. But I was initially quite a cynic in that space. I was like, this can't be, this can't work too well. But it actually has, and it's been good.
Wow.
But part of that is because you can see each other, and you are mirroring,
of course,
and you're moving, and there is that.
Yeah.
Now, on a personal level, I prefer face to face.
Yeah.
I prefer that. But that's not everyone's cup of tea. That's not everybody else's preference. Some people, for various reasons, prefer to do an online.
I don't think they would feel, my guess would be they wouldn't feel threatened. Like, if they go in to see you, they've never met you before, they don't know you, walk into the office, what's he going to be like? Whereas you master your own destiny if you're doing a phone call or. I mean,
they can be sitting there in the comfort of their own home with trackies and Ugg boots on, cuddling their cat, drinking a cup of tea in their familiar space. But also there's people who live remotely. There's people who because of disability or whatever, restricted in their geographical movements. So that it's a preferable option for many people. Yeah.
What do you see You've been doing counselling for a number of years.
A long time, yeah.
What seems, you mentioned loneliness before, but what would you say at the moment is the one that is the most prevalent with that need counselling, if there is one?
Okay. That's actually a really difficult question. I think it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
I think underlying many of these things is loneliness. I would say that trauma is a huge one. I mean, many people would say that trauma is the greatest mental health issue in the Western world. And in more recent years, there's been a lot more research done into that. There's been the development of a lot of different therapy models and approaches that have been specifically about targeting trauma. So that's a big one, huge. I think relationship breakdowns, whether that's the big D, the divorce, or just breakdown in friendships or family relationships, estrangement of children and things like that. And then obviously you're looking at depression and anxiety and grief, those kinds of things. And then you've got addictions. You've got, in some areas, the prevalence of, there's meth addiction, there's recreational drug addiction, there's gambling addictions, there's pornography addiction, which is a huge one.
It's just, it's like, you come in here, Nick, and it's just like you open up and I really do it. It's so interesting, and there's so many subjects that we can.
Yeah.
Is there I often sort of, and I've probably got the wrong metaphor, if that's the right word, probably is the wrong word, but you see in a lot of countries, maybe it's just what I've seen, that people seem happy with nothing and they don't seem to, well, they need counselling or they don't have counselling, but they seem happy.
Yeah.
I find it strange sometimes that businesses like what you do is an increasing thing, thing's wrong word, in the Western world. Is there some correlation there? Or?
Well, you're about to open up a massive can of worms here. Look, I mean, we could talk about, I guess, in the Western world, there has been the movement toward the nuclear family. So there's not as much family interaction with extended families and whatnot. So you have situations now where, say, many of the aged are either living alone or, which wouldn't have happened in previous generations to such a degree. There's been a movement away from living in closer proximity. And I guess, as we go further back, you're dealing with, back in earlier generations, you had village life. You had people living in and interacting more socially, and many of the needs that now counsellors and psychologists are meeting, perhaps back in the day would have been needs that the local pastor or the local or your grandfather or your nonna or your that kind of thing would have been more a part integrated into that community. And we've, there has been a drifting away from that, and there is more social isolation, I would say, in today's Western world. Which brings me to the next point. We've had the privilege over the last, how long now? The last 11 years, we've had the privilege of being able to do work in Myanmar, which was previously Burma,
Right.
in Asia. I first visited Myanmar in, I think it was 2014. And, you know, this is in many ways a developing country. And so we've been involved in working with an orphanage over there, and have you know, travelled back and forth and supported people over there. Was over there last year running a trauma conference. And basically, long story short, is that the happiest people that I've met have been in Myanmar. Now, if you think about it, Myanmar is known as the most violent country in the world, has the longest running civil war in world history, has had genocides, natural disasters, you know, earthquakes, just trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon generational trauma has happened in that country. But yet there's a social cohesion within communities in Myanmar that is closer than what we have. And so I have memories of first going to Myanmar and spending, you know, a week in an orphanage, and you know, being amongst children, teenagers, widows, and volunteers in this space who have personally come out of trauma, but are experiencing community and care within the you know, the I guess the framework of this orphanage, and there is a joy there, despite, and part of that is I would say about their faith, but a huge part of it is simply genuine connection.
And that, because again, you see, Myanmar, which was, I didn't even know it was formerly Burma.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Mind you, I did work with a Burmese lady again.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know how long it's been Myanmar for.
Yep. So I couldn't give you an exact date, but I believe since the 80s. I could be wrong with that, but
which would tie in with a lady who I worked with, and she said, you know, I come from Burma.
Yeah.
You know, but she was very funny enough. I remember I can picture her in mind. She was very pleasant and you know, I love. But you know, it's interesting that, you know, it must be. You must have a lot of knowledge there about human reactions. So if I was to meet, I don't know how old you are, but I was to meet somebody your age who have been born and bred in WA.
Yep.
And yet I would think, and this is not denigrating anybody from WA or anybody from Australia or England, but I dare say that, that I think we are very insulated.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
we don't know how lucky we are.
You know, and that's the thing that I find. I think it doesn't matter if it's a country versus another country, and they go, "Oh, those people from, you know, those people from Tasmania, they've all got two heads. They're hopeless. They're stupid. They're behind the times." And I think, you know, that's, and I feel like, oh, you ever gone to Tasmania and meeting Tasmania people? I know, but I read in the press that they haven't got a television, and I think, wow, that's so insular and so, you know, I just think the mind's out there, you know, and I can see when I finish this show with you, Nick, I'm going to read up about Myanmar and the people there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's interesting.
It's fascinating.
And is it really?
Fascinating. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially after telling me all the trauma they've been through. How many people live in?
What's the population of Myanmar? I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And we could Google it, but
no.
I couldn't even tell you.
No.
But you know, look, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about the history, but really, the Myanmar is made up of 130 odd ethnic groups.
Oh, really?
So
Seriously?
yeah. So even from the very outset, the country, in a sense, was birthed in war. So it's you're talking thousands of years ago. So it's a long history of conflict. And look, I love going there, and in fact, I've built a connection with the pastor who looks after the orphanage that we connect with. He's actually going to be over here next week. Over that time, and he's been able to introduce us to various people throughout Myanmar and take us to different parts. We were there a number of years ago, and we were able to go to a part of Myanmar where myself and my mate who came with me from here, we were the first white people that had been there in 100 years to this particular area. And, it was just such a privilege to interact with these people and to be welcomed and to share and fascinating, utterly fascinating.
What was the thing that hit you most when you said you're the first person that had been there for 100 years? What hit you the most?
Being in that particular region, is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay. I think how do I say it? There's so many things, but I think the standout is the people. The Burmese people that I have interacted with largely are incredibly gentle people. And when you go there, there is an appreciation, and I think you find this with many developing countries if you visit them, is that there's an appreciation. People are grateful that you've decided to visit them, and hence there's an openness, and I think whether you're talking about appreciation and gratitude in a marriage or an appreciation and gratitude in people in Myanmar. Gratitude and appreciation is just a beautiful foundation for relationship. So you go there and people are, kind and appreciative and thanks for coming. And there's an open heart. It's just great.
Yeah, it almost seems like, to me, from listening to you, it's like what it should be.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes I say to people, appreciation is a great detox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It keeps disrespect and contempt at bay.
Yeah. And I think, generalisations are so easy, but I think, and I think we live in an amazing place in WA.
Oh, incredible.
And I think I often say to my friends, my wife, that people don't appreciate, I won't say anything here, but, when are they going to put an extra lane on the freeway? I go, yeah, but you've got a freeway and it might take you 5, but isn't it nice that you've got them? Isn't it nice you've got the train, and it's almost, should have them. Yeah. But I think, can't you appreciate what you got?
Sure, yeah.
And I think it sort of is always this thing of, like even something basic as running water.
Yep.
And electricity.
Yeah.
And people don't appreciate them.
And look, I think we all fall into that trap. When you were saying that, I was thinking, God, I was only complaining about the freeway last week about something.
Yeah, I know.
It's there. But I think it's interesting. My parents are expats from the UK, and I was born in the UK. I was born in Essex. I'm an Essex man.
Gavin and Stacey.
Gavin and Stacey. Yep. But was 6 months old when I made the executive decision to leave the place. But I say that my folks left the UK in their early 20s and went and worked in deepest, darkest Africa as teachers.
Wow.
And they were browned off with the weather and left and were like, and in fact, when they went back, my mother cried. She was like, I can't come back to this weather. I can't cope with this. And then they moved to Australia. And so in a sense, I was born and grew up with, I guess, the appreciation that my parents had of Australia.
Yes.
And I think, look, I love travelling. I love the UK. I love going, I love going to different places. But, I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that's better than here. And I remember reading Tim Winton, one of his autobiographies, and he'd spent a number of years living in Ireland and in Paris and different places in Europe. And I remember him saying, there was this lingering frustration or this feeling inside of him that he couldn't shake, but he couldn't quite identify when he was living there. And then when he came back to WA, it dawned on him. I think this is the story. And he realised that it was, you can't go anywhere in Europe where you can't see the hand of man. You can't see where man has done something to the land, but you come to WA and you don't have to go far to find some bush, some wilderness, some places where it's natural. And me and my mates, when we go surfing, we head down south or we go up north or wherever, and it's you're in that nature, you're in that place, and I just couldn't live without that.
It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Like, everybody has their, and I'm like you. I think, I always try and reflect on basically how lucky I am, and, you can go and grab a coffee and you can go down to Rockingham foreshore and the beaches are beautiful and the thing, and you look in a car park, depending where you go, and there may be half a dozen cars there.
Yeah.
And I think, could you imagine, like, even if you go to a, if you can go to a restaurant on the foreshore, or you can just have a cup of coffee there, whatever, have a cup of coffee, overlook there. And I think if you were somewhere else in the world, like, I'm assuming France or whatever, you wouldn't even, they'd look at you and say, you don't belong here, mate.
Yeah.
And I just don't think people realise that how lucky we are to have all that and be able to go there.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Question.
Yep.
How long are you here for? About another 10 or so minutes? Are happy?
Yeah.
You happy to?
Yeah. It's
happy to chat still?
Yeah. It's my day off. Let's go with it.
So, what percentage? When I speak to the David who comes here from Men's Mental Health.
Yeah.
He obviously talks a lot about men's mental health, which is good because he doesn't. I don't think he gets the acceptance, wrong word. The importance.
Okay.
As compared to a lot of other issues.
Yeah.
Do you find do you have a percentage, Nick, on women versus against men as regards numbers?
Okay, against attending counselling.
Yeah.
I'm not really good with stats, and I don't have numbers, but I think naturally speaking, and probably cultural reasons as well, women overall, in my experience, tend to be more comfortable talking about feelings. There are people who would point back to early man, and say, men are out hunting and they're walking side by side with their spears and they're hunting something, and the women are out gathering and they're the women are facing each other and they're gathered around bushes and different things, and they're probably out there bitching about their husbands and the just kidding. But not really. And I think, I think overall men tend to be more comfortable talking about serious things and feelings and whatnot, and just communicating in general side by side whilst doing something. And whereas, women are more apt to be able to sit around having a cup of coffee and talking about their feelings. And hence that reflects more, I think, in the counselling space. Look, we get a lot of blokes coming in, a lot of men. I think overall, maybe it's 60-40.
Oh, that's not bad though, really.
Yep.
At this stage,
Yeah. And look, with the couples space, sometimes it's women dragging their husbands in, sometimes it's husbands dragging their wives in.
Wow.
But I think, look, often men are better at compartmentalising. In a sense, there's an issue going on, we'll just put that in the back room and not talk about it and go fishing. Whereas women typically find it more difficult to put stuff in the back room. That they more often than not, they would rather talk about it. And so that lends itself to women expressing that in the counselling room.
It's a fascinating it's good just diversifying. When and it's funny what you say, Nick, when I have the man, David, who comes from Men's Mental Health, he mirrored what you said. He said, you won't get two men, a generalisation, of course, you won't get two blokes going out for coffee face to face.
Yeah.
He said, if men want to talk about what men want to talk about, they've got to be ripping and edging apart side by side.
That's it.
That's how you're going to get them to talk.
Yeah.
And I just, and you said sort of similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
So, do you have a? Nick's come in here and I just heard of what he does. So, do you have like a website, a Facebook address, or a business thing like that, Nick?
Yep. All of those. Yep. So we have a website, breathecounsellingperth.com.au.
How is that spelled?
Breathe, as in BREATHE. Breathe.
Oh, Breathe, yep.
Breathe Counselling. And you can get there either through breathecounsellingperth.com.au or breathecounselling.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. All of those various platforms. It's fairly user-friendly. Most of our appointments are booked straight off the website, so people are able to go on there, see the different counsellors in the different locations, and book Perth or book West Perth or book Albany or book.
How many sort of different
places?
Yeah.
Yep. So we have Mindarie, Joondalup, Wembley, West Perth, Perth CBD, Midland, Mandurah, Rockingham, and Albany.
Wow!
And online.
So how many people do you have involved, Nick?
Again, I'm not good with stats. No, there's about 27 of us all up.
Whoa!
And Joanna, my wife, also works with us, and she's a breathwork practitioner. So she does somatic breathwork. So that's helping people to manage their nervous systems through breathwork, which is amazing.
Okay, can we?
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, breathwork. What is breathwork?
Yeah. So look, I guess in more recent years, I was saying earlier, there's been a lot of studies done, a lot of therapies developed around trauma. Some of these are EMDR, so eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Yep. Big mouthful. Internal family systems, or IFS. Schema therapy, cognitive behavior therapy. many different forms of therapy, but there's a lot of these therapies will engage with practices that have been around for a long time, like mindfulness. And many of them integrate or incorporate in their approach approaches that directly work with the human nervous system. And breath work is one of those approaches. And so what we understand and what we're learning more and more through research and what have you, is that many struggles that people have in life are more accurately described as physiological or to do with the nervous system or neurobiology, the various workings of the organ of the brain, as opposed to simply saying, oh, you've got a mental health issue. Which is an interesting one in itself, because if there are times when you might say to someone, well, this is actually a physiological issue. This is a nervous system issue, not a mental health issue. For some people who may have a sense of shame or stigma around mental health, might be like, oh, wow, okay, tell me more. And so breath work, and as I said, alongside other therapies, incorporates practices that helps a person learn how to regulate and manage their nervous system so that they can manage their emotions and manage their thoughts, including anxiety.
So that's what the breath part of it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a very, very practical example that's very, very basic. Obviously, breathwork, somatic breathwork goes a lot further with this. But a very basic example is the military will use, what they call combat breathing. And they'll utilise combat breathing, or in psychology speak, we call it box breathing. And that is, simply breathing in for 4-5 seconds deeply, holding your breath for 4 or 5 seconds, breathing out for 4 or 5 seconds, breathing in for 4 or 5 seconds, holding for 4 or 5. So it's that, box breathing. And that will help a person's nervous system to regulate. And so, look, there are times when I will practice breathing when I'm surfing, if it's bigger than I'm comfortable with, and I'm getting a bit anxious. I'll just sort of slow my breathing down. And what that does, if I can explain it really, really quickly, is when a person is calm and collected and all's good in the hood, they're generally breathing slowly and, just naturally. They're just sort of breathing. And that breath sends a message up the person's vagus nerve, the biggest nerve in the autonomic nervous system, sends a message up the vagus nerve to the brain, telling the brain that all is good in the hood. All's okay. Yep. But if I'm in a stress response, if I'm in a place where I'm freaking out over, either a big wave coming or a dog is about to bite me, or my husband or wife is angry and they're yelling at me, I'm going to get dysregulated. My nervous system is going to go, oh, we're in danger here. And so my breathing is going to be quicker.
Yeah.
If I notice that and go, I can actually adjust my breathing. And generally,
interesting.
Yeah. And so, oftentimes we talk about around conflict management with couples. We say, okay, if you reach a point where you are dysregulated, just let each other know. Just say, look, I need a minute here. We're in the middle of a blue. We're in the middle of a fight, which most of us know what that is. Give me a minute. In fact, give me 20 minutes. Let me go away. And you go away, deep breathe, physiologically self-soothe. Slow it down, which is telling your brain that you're safe. brings you back into a calmer place, then you can come back into the conversation and be the kind of person that your partner wants to be in a relationship with.
It's been the time's just flown, Nick. It's been an hour and I haven't played any music,
Wow.
and it's just
It's
been
been fun.
absolutely so for me, which sounds a bit selfish, but hopefully people out there, it's been as good for them as it was me. It's been fascinating. If you're ever around again, I would just love to chat to you again, because I think we just scratched the surface. But thanks very much, Nick. I really mean, from the bottom of my heart, it was just really, really great. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it. It's been
good.
great chatting. Yeah.
And we'll do the right thing. We'll do the right thing. We'll play one of these.